Greetings, everybody. This is Mark Doris here, providing you another random collective assortment of facts from the Dragon Ball series. This time around, I wanted to focus a little bit on the Prince of all Saiyans himself, Vegeta. Now, Vegeta is easily one of the most favored and respected characters in the entire Dragon Ball series. However, with such a long, rich, and extensive history, there are a lot of interesting things you guys may not necessarily have known about the character. So, I've collected about 10 fun, interesting things about Vegeta that I wanted to share with you guys now that hopefully you didn't know. First and foremost, did you guys know that Vegeta actually obtains a Super Saiyan 3 form? We see this in the video game Dragon Ball Z Dragon Battlers, a Japan-only exclusive released back in 2009. Now, you may not have heard of it because it was an exclusive to Japan, however, there are some other video games that do show off the Super Saiyan 3 form. Some other video games actually do cover that even Broly gets a Super Saiyan 3 form. Dragon Battlers, for example, actually provides a Super Saiyan 3 form to not only present Trunks, but also future Trunks as well, and the hybrid fusion of Goku and Vegeta in Gogeta. Now, this is where we kind of get into murky territory because what is considered canon and what is not considered canon. I mean, to be honest, the video games themselves are not considered to be part of the mainstream storyline, kind of like how the 20 original movies of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z don't actually fit into the timeline anywhere. These video games kind of follow the same rules in that they're more of a fun way to entertain and provide some what-if type of scenarios, but are not considered canon or true to the original source material. What's interesting here, too, though, considering that fact is being brought up, is that the manga is what is considered to be the primary, truest fact in its rawest form. For example, even the dubs, they don't necessarily cover all the same information across the board. So depending on what language you watch it in, or what region you are, or what company is dubbing the material, they might actually alter the story a little bit. So it's hard to say what's actually considered canon at this point. But do keep in mind that Vegeta does obtain the Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan form in Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. So in theory, potentially, Vegeta might actually have the ability to transform into a Super Saiyan 3. Whether or not we're going to see that in the upcoming Dragon Ball Super franchise, well, you know what? It's kind of one of those hearsay things. There's no fact or rumor about it now. It could be possible. It might not happen. Maybe not even talk about that. But either way, it is possible that he can actually do it, considering how strong that he's gotten over the years. Fact number 2. So, Vegeta obviously is one of the most stubborn and fearless type of characters that we have in the entire series as well. However, in one episode, we do see that Vegeta does in fact have at least one particularly known fear. In the episode Mind Trap during the Majin Buu saga, Vegeta is demonstrated to actually have a fear of worms, something that he shares in the English dub through Funimation with Goku. Now, I bring this up kind of tethering on to the previous fact in that this is the only time this is ever referenced. So Vegeta having a fear is kind of tough to say. There's a couple other times where he's shown to be slightly scared or having some actual fear. We see this in the legendary Super Saiyan, again, the English dub as well, where Vegeta seems to be worried that he realizes the danger and threat that they're in facing off against the legendary Super Saiyan. We also see this when he meets Beerus for the first time in Battle of Gods. Well, when we meet Beerus. Apparently he's actually seen the character before, but he never references up until Battle of Gods when he's scared and he knows that the power that Beerus does have, and he could just easily blow up the entire planet in a single finger tap. So Vegeta's not shown to have many fears. We do know potentially the non-canon Broly appearance, the Funimation English dub with the worms, and not Resurrection, but Battle of Gods do show that Vegeta does actually have some fears, potentially. But that all depends on what you consider canon and what's not canon. Again, kind of one of those murky areas, but you can be the judge on that. So, additionally, tethering on the previous fact as well, Vegeta's not really an emotional type. He's stubborn, he's thick-headed, he's angry, which is pretty much the only emotion that he ever really shows over time. However, we do see at least once that Vegeta does express the love of Bulma and Trunks, and this is right before he sacrifices himself in the Majin Buu saga. So, I find this to be one of the most interesting, kind of unusual facts, and it certainly does demonstrate the strength that Vegeta has, or at least amongst his willpower. So when Vegeta is under the Majin influence, he caresses Trunks and he holds him and he says, "Come here, son, I haven't held you since you were a baby," and then he knocks him unconscious, and Goten as well, and he tells Piccolo to get them away to safety because Vegeta is about to give up his own life. So this kind of provides a couple of interesting things. First, the Majin influence is supposed to make him entirely evil. It's a spell that brings out his most evil side, which is kind of a throwback to Vegeta's first arrival on Earth when he's trying to take over the planet and kill Goku, etc., etc. However, what I do find fascinating about this is that while under this form, not only does he ignore Babidi and fight against Goku and before leaving that whole thing to go and fight Buu, but he also shows love of Trunks, caring about others, and sacrificing himself all for the greater good while under the Majin influence. That seems to be kind of unusual for the Prince of all Saiyans, who's never shown a single emotion at any time ever except for anger, to do this while he's under the Majin influence, right? Seems a little bit unusual, but either way, regardless, it does seem like Vegeta does have an emotionally soft side, sort of, albeit when he's under the most evil of influences. Fact number 4. So, despite being dead within the Majin Buu saga as well, right after he sacrifices himself, Vegeta is able to go back to Earth and fuse with Goku into Vegito. A couple of interesting fun facts about this. Okay, so first and foremost, when Vegeta turns or transforms into Vegito with Goku, there's no halo on Vegito. It's kind of hard to say exactly why, but maybe Goku's life force kind of washes out Vegeta's deadness. I mean, he's not alive, but the halo doesn't exist anymore. But the most interesting thing about this is that I find that Goku on this day was sent back to Earth to partake in a World Martial Arts Tournament, and he only had 24 hours to be on Earth based on all the great things that he had done, so they kind of bent the rules a little bit. But for him to actually come back to Earth after his time was up, Elder Kai had to give up his life so Goku could break that rule once again and go back to Earth. Now, this is where it kind of gets unusual. So, Vegeta, who's been kind of a selfish jerk throughout the entire series, sacrifices himself one time, something Goku has done a couple of times. But for some reason, King Yama actually sends him back to Earth anyway with no stipulations. Now, you'd think that the Kais would actually exceed King Yama's ruling, but King Yama's like, nope, Vegeta, go straight to Earth, no big deal. And he's sent back to Earth with no problem. So it's like, okay, so Goku, who's saved the entire universe countless times and is completely selfless except for the fact that he wants to fight just because that's his only real selfish trait that we see for the most part. He doesn't get to come back to Earth. He actually has to kill a Kai to go back to Earth, but Vegeta can just go straight back to Earth. Seems to be a little bit unfair and one-sided here if you ask me, but either way, still. Interestingly enough, the voice actor in the English Funimation dub, in fact number 5 here, is Christopher Sabat. Chris Sabat, one of the greatest guys that we've ever met working for Funimation as the voice of Vegeta, doesn't actually only do that voice. He also voices Piccolo, Shenron, and Mr. Popo, among many other random characters in the entire series, providing that he probably has easily the widest resume in terms of characters for that entire franchise as a whole. Fact number 6. So, Vegeta almost always addresses Goku by his Saiyan birth name, Kakarot. However, he does use the name Goku only in several, albeit unusual, occasions. Now, this original fact, I wanted to expand on the sheer fact here that he only calls Goku by his name, Goku, roughly less than 10 times, about 8 times throughout the whole series. The problem with this particular fact is it depends on what dub that you're in, considering that you might be in a different region, there's different companies that do the dubbing in English. I would have safe to say that Vegeta does not refer to Kakarot as Goku more than 10 times throughout pretty much every dub across the board. It's Kakarot through and through. That's just how we know him. That's Goku's birth name, etc., etc. But again, this all depends on the dub that you actually watch. Fact number 7. Okay, so this one is one of those things where it's kind of a slight continuation error, but it's also a fact. So the fact here is that Vegeta is only 5 foot 5 inches, okay? We know these facts and these interesting physical or physicalities about the characters based on the Android saga, when the androids are examining and scanning the characters and getting a better understanding of the Z fighters, knowing their addresses, their strengths, their weaknesses, their heights, and their special abilities, those types of things. So, Vegeta's only 5'5". His hair is easily the biggest thing about him, ladies. But what's interesting about this is early on in the franchise, when Vegeta, or the series rather, when Vegeta shows up in the Saiyan saga, he's about on par with the same height as Krillin. But as the story progresses, Vegeta later on shows to be almost the same height as Goku. He's quite taller. So, I mean, obviously they go through different transformations in different sizes and different shapes, and they power up and gather energy, and their muscles get big, etc., etc. It does seem to be a little bit unusual that Vegeta had a growth spurt, considering that he's roughly 40 to 52 years old, which brings us to fact number 8. So, Vegeta was born in 732 AD. Now, you can find this on the Dragon Ball Wiki. I believe this to be actual fact. I think this is something that was pointed out and recognized in the... do not correct me on the translation on this. I know I'm going to totally butcher this, but I think it's the Dragon Ball Daizenshu? Daizenshu? Not exactly sure. You can refer to the Tao of Dragon Ball website. They kind of have a lot of facts and collective assortments there too if you want to read more about Dragon Ball Z facts as well. But the point is that if Vegeta was born in 732 AD, we do know that he's at least 52 years old by the final episode of Dragon Ball Z, where he appears, I believe, at the 28th World Martial Arts Tournament, where we meet Oob for the first time. So Dragon Ball Super, the series that picks up and overlaps Dragon Ball Z right now, presently, has them about 10 years before that, meaning that roughly he's 42 years old at that time. Now, of course, Vegeta and Goku don't anywhere near look their age, because Saiyans don't age the same way that normal human people do, but it does mean that Vegeta's certainly over the hill, having been born in 732 AD. This is one of my favorite facts, and I remember discovering this on my own years and years ago, back in the days of Dragon Ball Z Budokai for the PlayStation 2. So, the Dragon Ball Z video games, I mean, obviously they're not considered canon, but they do provide a lot of interesting what-if scenarios. And in one what-if scenario, Dragon Ball Z Budokai episode, labeled as Vegeta Saiyan Prince, actually reimagines the events of Vegeta arriving on Earth and actually succeeding in killing Goku and taking over that planet. However, in doing so and being successful, somehow his emotions get so stirred up he transforms and becomes a Super Saiyan. Now, whether or not this actually is a fact is hard to say because it didn't actually happen. It's part of a video game. It's not in the anime or the manga. But it does seem to be interesting that, considering that Vegeta has to wait so long before transforming into a Super Saiyan, he has to have so much motivation before he finally gives up while he's training in space and then powers up into a Super Saiyan. It is kind of an interesting, fun sort of fact, some sort of non-canon consideration that Vegeta could have transformed into a Super Saiyan if and only if he could have beat Goku while on Earth. Of course, this is not really a fact that's what would have happened. This is the fact that it is in that game. And finally, fact number 10. So, we do know already the fact that Vegeta's entire family was wiped out during the events of the destruction of planet Vegeta, something that Frieza did, something that, side fact for you, that Lord Beerus, the god of destruction, actually approved that Frieza could do, etc., etc. The rest is history. However, Vegeta does have a couple of other members of his family on his father's side. Now, this is one of those facts that is probably the most commonly known on this list, and that fact is that he has a younger brother named Tarbal, who is not on planet Vegeta. Tarbal is considered canon. Before you guys get all up in arms, he's considered canon. He's in the manga. He's an official character. This is entirely true, so you guys can relax a moment. This is a total fact. So, his brother Tarbal shows up on Earth requesting help from Vegeta and the rest of the Z fighters because there's some aliens that are after him that have somehow gotten just as strong as Frieza. Like, they each have a power level of 1 million or whatever. Doesn't really matter, but he shows up. However, he does bring along his wife, making this character Vegeta's sister-in-law. Now, Gure, the wife of Tarbal, is kind of an unusual-looking character. She looks like, I mean, I don't want to say a garden gnome. I mean, who am I to get in the way of true love? But she's kind of an unusual, sort of basic-shaped character. She just has a round head and a square-shaped body, sort of. She doesn't really have a whole lot going on. I mean, look, I think Tarbal could do a whole lot better. But it is interesting considering that Vegeta does have a few other family members. You can see this during the events of Yo Goku and his friends return, or Yo Son Goku and his friends return. I think that's like the rough Japanese translation of that little OVA that you guys can search for and find. Anyway, it's a fun little video that focuses on some expansion of the characters and some of the other relatives of Vegeta. But regardless, not everybody died on planet Vegeta. It seems more and more people are being introduced in the series that were not on planet Vegeta during the events of its destruction. So who knows what other characters could be out there that are related to either Goku, Vegeta, or anybody else for that matter. But there you have it, guys. 10 interesting fun facts about Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans himself. If you guys liked what you see, be sure to hit the like button down below. Really helps me out. Provide some comments and give me some feedback. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I'll be doing some more fact videos like this. If you have any particular characters you want me to cover, be sure to let me know down below. Hey, that rhymed. And I will be sure to cover it. I will always take what you guys have to say in consideration. Much appreciated, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. I will see you guys next time. Take care.